Good evening guys, and welcome to a video that is a little bit different than what we normally do on the channel. You know, even though the world of Subnautica is truly magical, when I talk about its lore, I usually try to kind of stay in the realm of what is most likely intended by the developers and what is pretty clear from the game. You know, we talk about the appearance, the locations, all stuff that you can find on the wiki, and some extra theories that you can come into if you play the game yourself, observe the creatures or locations, or read some online forums. But today I want to make this video a lot more debate-based about a topic that, as far as I'm aware, we currently don't have a clear answer to, and I thought it would be pretty fun to theorize about it a little bit just before we, most likely, get the answer somewhere in the future. As you might have guessed from the title of this video, today we will be talking about how it's even possible that any creatures in Subnautica below zero are still currently alive. Of course, before we get into anything, I have to warn you that this video will contain spoilers from the story of the main game and also from the story that is currently in Subnautica below zero, so if you don't want to have either of those spoiled, I strongly recommend clicking off the video and coming back to it later. Now with that out of the way, put on your best detective trench coat, get ready to investigate some theories, and let's go. Now first of all, to get us started, why is this a question at all? Well, what we learn in the base game is that most of the ocean on planet 4546b has been absolutely decimated by the Kharaa bacterium. You know, after it leaked once the sea dragon attacked the precursor base in the Lost River, it has absolutely devastated the ecosystem of the planet, save for the small location of the Safe Shallows that has managed to remain somewhat lively because of the last remaining individual from the Sea Emperor species that resides down in the active lava zone. If you're still unclear on what exactly this is about, I strongly recommend you watch the two lore videos that I made, one on the Peeper and one on the Kharaa bacterium, to get you all caught up. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but here we are in Subnautica below zero, which supposedly takes place approximately 2 years after the events of the main game. We can guess this by listening to Marguerite, who managed to survive, and hearing her say that she made it for about 12 years. And considering that the gas seed crashed 10 years before the events of the original game, that puts us about 2 years after what happened in the first Subnautica. We find ourselves in what seems to be the Arctic, or at least a very cold region of the planet in one of the poles, presumably, and well, it is just beaming with life. And more importantly, it's beaming with life forms that were not present in the base game of Subnautica. And so the question is, how is that possible? As far as we know, the entire rest of the planet should have been decimated, and if you simply said that life has managed to spread out in those 2 years, that would work, except for the fact that there are new species which we haven't seen before, meaning that these must have somehow survived even with the Kharaa bacterium being out there. Now there are several theories that we could try to use to explain them, and I will go through some of the ones that I've seen be the most popular, and I've also asked you guys on Discord to give me your opinion on this topic, and then at the very end I will give you what are my thoughts on this and how I think this actually all went down. Now the first theory, and one that I've thought of myself as probably the first option, is that the Kharaa bacterium can't survive in the cold water. I mean, it would make sense on paper. No bacterium is invincible, and theoretically, if you were to put it into crazy enough conditions, it could potentially die out. However, the reason I don't think this works is because do remember that the Kharaa bacterium happened in the Lost River, the by far coldest area of the base Subnautica game, and one where presumably the average temperatures are just around what they would be in below zero, meaning that we have in fact seen Kharaa be able to survive in cold water, so this theory kind of doesn't work. The next possible one is that it's simply too far away. I mean, we do learn from the databank entry about the crater edge that only Leviathan and microscopic organisms can live there, so maybe it's possible that Kharaa simply couldn't spread that far enough because there's just this empty void and it would never reach the Arctic. This would work if it weren't for the frozen Leviathan. See, in below zero you can find a skeleton of what is a frozen Leviathan species that is dating approximately 1000 years back And lo and behold, if you cut it with a knife, you get yourself a Kharaa sample, meaning that the bacterium has most definitely made it into the area of below zero. Now the next possible theory is that there is simply another emperor there, supplying the area with, well, an incomplete version of enzyme 42. However, this one is very unlikely in my opinion, mostly because in the base game the PDA straight up tells us that the Emperor is the last of its species, and it is never really hinted that there could potentially be more on the planet. And yes, I do realize that in Below Zero you can currently find one, but I think the running theory is that that one is simply a grown-up version of one of the ones you hatch in the base game. Now finally, there is also the theory that Peepers could have somehow made it over there, the same way as they've been keeping the safe shallows alive and helped some of the life frolic. And while this is very unlikely, I suppose it is possible. It doesn't really go well with the fact that the PDA seems pretty adamant in the first game about the rest of the planet being kind of decimated, and if you think about it, Peepers swimming all around the place would probably be able to keep the planet at least somewhat lively. Oh, and also the Below Zero area seems to be pretty far away from the base game. I mean, it's not right around the corner. However, and now it comes down to what I think may have actually happened, is that I believe that there might be some connection between the alien bases which can be found in Below Zero and those which can be found in the base game, perhaps a teleport of some sort. I mean, we've seen that they are capable of doing that, and it might just happen that one of these would be close to the original Emperor's enclosure and would just happen to have the exit perhaps crash into water or submerge or something right around the Below Zero area, leaving some of the Peepers to go through and, well, at least partially keep that ecosystem alive until the player reaches it in Below Zero 2 years later. Now, unfortunately, as of right now, there is no real way to confirm or deny that theory, and in fact, it is completely possible that we might learn in the future that there was a completely different way for the Kharaa sample to be transmitted, whether it's not just Peepers capable of carrying it, or whether it's the fact that some plant maybe can create this enzyme, or maybe some other creature other than the Sea Emperor is capable of producing it. I think this is a pretty interesting question that I really hope Below Zero will eventually give us an answer to. Of course, just like I said, this is one of those videos where I simply do not have an answer to the question, so this is the part where I would very gladly hear from you guys what you think and what your theory on this whole topic is down in the comments below. And I would very much like to maybe start an interesting discussion if you decide to join the Discord that is down in the description, where we can talk all about it. But with that, I'm gonna end the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed and maybe have some interesting things to think about or look for as more content for Below Zero is released. If you liked the video, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. And if there is something obvious that I simply missed that completely blows it out of the water, no pun intended, make sure to leave that in the comments below as well. I would very much like to be corrected or taught the right answer. With that, I want to wish you all a beautiful rest of today, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.